So the physiotherapist in the statement just says, okay, then move your stump. And as soon as she said move my stump, I did. And never have I seen something like that before in my life. We prayed a lot. I am a sign of God's prayer. Upon leaving, I was not in the car that had the accident. But my friend was in the car, however, in the back seat of the passenger. She begged me to go to Jeffrey's. She begged me to get into a car, only for the car to get involved in a near hijacking 15 minutes later.
In our latest GaonaLive conversation, Palesa takes us back to June 2010, reliving a tragic accident that still has her in awe of how she survived. What was meant to be a thrilling World Cup season turned into an encounter that went on to change her life for good, losing her friend and being thrust into a completely new life as an amputee. Palesa's resilience is truly inspirational, and her story is that of a young lady who said no to defeat and yes to flourishing. Check out our conversation. So Palesa, thank you very much for doing this. Thank you very much for taking, this moment to have this conversation on GaonaLive Conversations. And, this is something that I like saying to almost all my guests, the fact that I appreciate this so much because us telling our stories is one of the greatest acts of service towards humanity because, first of all, there's possibly somebody who's going through something similar and is feeling isolated in that little corner and they need to know they're not alone. And hearing it coming from somebody with, such resilience, somebody who's been able to live a beautiful, colorful life in spite of what you've been through. I think that is really inspirational. So thank you very much for doing this. But before we get to June 2010, I want us to just go back to you growing up. Take us back to your childhood. What was that like? What kind of child were you? Something tells me you've always been talkative, but yeah, anyways, let me allow you to do the talking.
Hi, Hannah. Thank you for having me. I don't normally share my story, but I think this is the right medium. A lot of people need to hear how people of my kind live. So I was born an able-bodied, 2 legs, 2 arms, young girl, Gujwaning. Mm-hmm. Life was small town, lovely. We had a safe town, cultured town. Everything was white picket fence. So I had a very great childhood. Went to great schools. We were raised in a small town with a small community, so everyone was everyone's child. So the Yes. So that was it. I was active, quite the athlete actually. Mm-hmm. So what happened to me was a blow that I think a lot of people didn't think I was going to be able to handle. Yes, I was quite athletic from primary all the way up into high school. Mm-hmm. So by then I was playing about 4 different sports and still doing athletics, still doing marathon relay running. Yeah. So I was very athletic all the way up until the 6th of June, 2010. Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit more about your family. Do you have siblings and what was your relationship with your siblings like? You're very athletic. It's something that you mentioned. And also perhaps let's introduce the concept of God, because I think a lot of us growing up, we come from Christian families. Right now, of course, there's a new spirituality movement, religion versus spirituality conversation. But let's also just touch a little bit on that. Were you aware of God growing up and what was that like?
I grew up in a very spiritual family, extremely spiritual. My great-grandfather was a pastor. My grandmother, Nele Moreri. My mother has been devoted her entire life to church. So Linda, growing up, I was teaching Sunday school at some point.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I taught Sunday school at some point to help my grandmother because she had all her other duties again to do. So yes, we're a very spiritual family, or a very religious family. I, on the other hand, I think growing up, I've come to realize that there's also an African spirituality or an Africanism to how we live.
Yeah.
Before there was Christianity, we also had ways and rules. in which Black people, Africans knew how to relate to each other. So that in the form of culture. So a lot of also my spirituality or my Christianity also delves into culture. We can't figure out roots and then just live according to something else. So yeah, that's me. It also really played an essentially huge role in me getting better. The things I'm going to explain to you,
Absolutely.
going in here, you'll think only God.
And this is really why I wanted us to introduce the concept of God before we get to that, because I really wanted to figure out, to see how that evolved. You know what I mean? Because one thing for sure is grief is one of those things that, you know, can either make or break your relationship with God. You know what I mean? It hugely affects our spirituality. So that is really why I wanted to bring it in. But I know we'll explore it a bit more a bit later on. And what were your aspirations, you know, as you were growing up? What did you want to become? What did you see your future looking like?
As you can tell, as you know me, actually. So I'm quite on the talkative side when I'm comfortable. That is when I'm comfortable. So I've always wanted to be a lawyer. That's what I'm doing now. But I've always had a thing for the underdog. So I also do a lot of advocacy for different things, obviously. But I think now people always want to channel me into a specific role. And half of the time I'm like, no, I want to advocate for that. I want to do that.
Yeah.
So yes, I've always wanted to be a lawyer. And thankfully, this didn't change. But for a brief second, as you will get to find out, it could have really changed. It could have really changed. I don't know what I've done because I didn't have anything else. I also thought of being a psychologist, actually. So I think my need to want to help solve people's problems has always been there. Yeah. So luckily, what I've always wanted to do, I could do. It's just my life obviously did have a change. Physically, definitely. Even just the way you thought things would happen and pan out for your life. Some things start to happen much slower, or what was a given is no longer a given. So, yeah.
And then you eventually went for tertiary in Port Elizabeth, South Africa.
Yes.
How did that come about and what was that like?
Ooh. So my mom's going to hear this. But my gap year, my mother and I were clashing. We were clashing. You know, I was a straight A student as well, so I didn't do it. I did everything she wanted. But, you know, mothers and daughters. And I was 18. I thought, you know, I've got to figure out Kimotona. So, really logging heads. And I thought, you know what? The best thing is to go to study somewhere far. So that I don't have to deal with her every week. So, yeah, I applied to UB. I applied. Every other place still took me for law. But then I enrolled in PE. Obviously by the help of an older cousin of mine. But yeah, he assisted me and his younger brother. And I thought, far, great. And I knew people, so I was like, I'm not going to suffer that much. So I went far.
And how was that like? How was life in PE prior to the accident, of course? Like, you know, how was that like? And how long was it? How long were you in PE before the accident? Yeah.
2.5 years.
Okay.
So I went to PE 2008. That was my first year. PE, there's the half of PE that's Kwakasi or the colored areas is quite dangerous. But we were in a campus that was the only campus in a game reserve in the whole world. And it was by the beach. And we lived by the beach. It was still a very homely town for the better part of it. It's just bigger, obviously, in size. But it was still very homely. It was still very white-like, you know. So, yeah, it was great. It was cool. I studied well. The student body, I think, it appears big at the beginning of time. But slowly but surely, you go from being that girl from Botswana to being Palesa to having your own real unique identity.
Yeah.
So I was there from 2008 until 2018, 10 years. I studied and I worked. I didn't come back immediately.
Well. Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
so in those 10 years, I evolved from being a small little blip to being a shadow, to being a person, to being a fully fledged adult living in PE with that history. A lot of people didn't even know that I wasn't from PE. Yeah, it settled in. It's a home away from home. So yeah, for me, that's a place I can still call home.
Let's talk about the 6th of June, 2010. I want you to tell me about, perhaps before we even get to the days prior to that, the actual day before the accident. Do you have vivid memories of what it was like, before the accident? So please take us there.
It was a Sunday.
Yeah.
It was a Sunday. It was exam week. So it was the 6th of June, that Sunday. World Cup was starting, I think, the Thursday. It was the last week of exams. So for me, the last week of exams was English for law and customary law. Those are modules that you could write in your sleep. As long as you just went to class, you know what to do. A friend of mine, may her soul rest in peace, Mane, came to my house. We were at the library all the time. As I said, I was a bookworm. So I was still a bookworm with a social life, colorful life at that. We were supposed to go to the library. So she came to my house, her dad dropped her off, and she liked snacks a lot. So the snacks at my house, she had already eaten over the week. Sunday, it was spa. So I marinated chicken, left it in the oven, didn't tell my housemates, cooked, and went with her to Spa to go buy snacks. We get to Spa, we meet a bunch of our friends, and they're like, oh, let's go to Jeffreys Bay. Jeffreys Bay is the distance of Gaborone Pakalani, or Gaborone Engineer Mamashia. That's the distance. So we thought, oh, okay. First, I said no. I really said no the whole time. And then one of our other friends popped in, Luella. And I said, well, if Luella says yes, then okay, sure. Because I didn't want to go. But we went. We went, so we left from Spa. Mind you, get the chicken, marinate.
I was just trying to say that. I can't chicken is it's more of a we were Jeffreys Bay. Yeah.
Yep. So we left. We had a good time. It was chilled. We're by the beach. People had their books there, For those who still had exams, it was a usual Sunday afternoon. And then we left. And by then we had like 4 or 5 different cars. And we all went to Jeffreys Bay. So
perhaps before we even get to that, I want to, please, we'll pick up that thought. But this is a few days before World Cup. Ikai vibe, feel it's here. Are you feeling it in PE this
I was supposed to be working.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even coming home for the holidays.
Yeah.
It's crazy. We have a new stadium, Go PE as well. It's really big. It's refurbished. Jobs are everywhere. There's all these new things in SA that are being implemented.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy time. Going to Jeffreys Bay on a Sunday. Everyone's at the beach. We're at the beachfront as well. So still people are at beachfronts. There's tourists all over the show. There's people selling stuff at the beach. I think pro South Africa, proudly South Africa, proudly that. it was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. And you're also just excited about the World Cup.
It was a lovely time to be there.
Yeah.
It was a lovely time to be there. Everything was changing for the best. So we had a good time at the beach. We left. Upon leaving, I was not in the car that had the accident.
Okay.
Yes, I was not in that car, but my friend was in that car. However, in the back seat of the passenger. So there's a driver, there's a passenger, there's behind the passenger, there's a middle, behind the driver. She was behind the passenger. I was in a different car. And then we stopped at the petrol station on the way back, still in the same format. You got an A1. And she begged me again to get into that car.
Yeah.
That car was driven by another friend of ours. So she begged me to get in the car. And then I said, okay, fine, because now we have to go back home. So now she's going straight home, drop. And obviously her dad dropped her at my house, so naturally kids and that was around past 6 to 7, something of that sort. It wasn't too dark, but it was nearly getting dark. Or to 7 past 7. And then she made the guy who was sitting in the passenger seat moved to the back. She was a bit chubby, so that was her explanation of what I am chubby. I can never fancy. And that was the way our day was rearranged. Remember, she asked to go. She begged me to go to Jeffrey's. She begged me to get into a car, only for the car to get involved in a near hijacking 15 minutes later.
Near hijacking?
Yes. So what happened is we drove out. Because Narendra Thaladi petrol leading, people buying biltong, other cars started leaving, but we all left in the same 5-minute space. But we were the last car to leave. Upon departure, I was now in the middle seat. My friend was now in the passenger seat. The specific friend who passed away. The rest of us were all still friends. And what I saw when I looked up was a man walking in a raincoat from one side of the road and another walking from the other side of the road. Mind you, it's the roads are very, or the streets are very scenic. On one side it's hills, and one side it's a beach, an ocean front. So it's one of those situations where kahamitsi kana matlapa well and to meet. So it's a catch-22. If that happens, naturally you stop.
Yeah.
So the driver didn't stop. Instead, he panicked and tried to swerve. Yeah. And that was the beginning of a different life for me. So the car rolled. From what I believe, what I hear, I came out of the windscreen from the back seat. I believe so in any event because I've never been in an accident. So imagine the cars moving about and then the radio screen and my face were this far apart. Big seat. So I can only imagine what I went through the windscreen. I came to Kuta, these people who find an accident. They were torching around because they found us. So they find a car sprawled out with 4 people. So my arm, as you can see, is broken in 3 places. But I'm right-handed. So I can imagine it's into the middle of a field, now which is now about a darkish time, that I waved this very hand. This hand has a bone that goes through here. My bone broke from here through here. So that's only God.
That's only God.
I used that very hand to wave at someone to find me in the middle of Kaga on the side of the road by rocks. By then, I couldn't feel my leg. So when this lady comes, she starts asking me questions. And I ask her, have you guys called the paramedics? And she's like, I know they're on their way, so I need you to keep talking.
Are you in pain?
No, at that time, I think I was completely numb because there's something that happens when you're in an accident and you're that close to death. So by then, my lungs were filled with water and blood because my lungs had been crushed. So filled with water and blood, so diha. So this lady's asking me to talk because she can see. And at that time, I can't breathe. So I said to her, I can't talk, but do I have 10 toes? And she says, yes. I'm like, okay, because I can't feel it.
So one leg, yeah.
And then she says, no, but we're going to keep on talking. And I said, okay, but I'm tired. And she's like, no, you have to. So I spoke with her. I don't know what we spoke about. God bless that lady. Until the paramedics arrived. I'm in the stretcher, obviously, one deceased. So I'm thinking I must be the driver. And then the one critical, and I thought, definitely me.
Yeah.
Because I am exhausted at this moment in time. And so the paramedics arrive. And I say to them, do you see 10 toes? Because I can't feel the one leg. And then I was still doing law at that time, obviously. But we're doing a module called Law for Delicts that also gave MVA and all that stuff as modules, as courses. So we knew about consent. So this guy's like, can I cut your shirt? Can I cut this? And I said to him, look, I'm above 21. you need to cut off everything because I can't breathe. And funny enough, I said to him, am I going to die? And he says, no. And I just chuckled. I'm like, you have to say so that I don't get scared. And that for me was it. According to me, I passed out. But according to the doctor, yes, I got to the hospital and I gave them my mother's number to call. And they called her to say, look, we need to cut her leg off. And my mom was like, what? So initially, apparently, I spoke to her. And I said to her, I've been in an accident and they need to cut off my leg.
So they told you, it's just that it's not, you don't remember any of that.
I don't remember. Because I asked them, like, how did they get to contact you? What happened? And she's like, well, I spoke to you first. And you spoke very calmly. And then the doctor took the phone. And then he explained and that was it. So my first amputation was below my knee.
Okay.
That very night. And then a day and a half later, they cut it to above my knee because I got a bit of an infection still. So what happened is that I had a compressed...
Do you remember any of this? Or is this what then you were told afterwards?
No, the last thing I remember is chuckling with the paramedic.
That's it. All right.
Yes.
All right, yeah.
And then I don't remember. Obviously, there's the first couple of days of being in a coma. My eyes are closed. Days late, I think about maybe my 13th day. Yes, my doctor did say from my 13th day to day 20 or so, my eyes were partially open, but I was still in a coma. And then I remember when I did wake up, but I still had so much going on in my body that I could hear the doctor saying, well, you can talk to her, she's listening, or she's awake. So I didn't get it. But at some point, my eyes were fully open now. But I was still comatose.
Yeah. But you could hear him. Could you hear people talking around you? Like, of course, the doctor says you can talk to her. And then who talks to you in that period?
You know, did you grow up watching Days of Our Lives? Mm-hmm. You know, Malina used to always get into comas. Yeah. And I used to wonder, like, how will I ever meet someone in a coma? It was so far-fetched. So you'd see it on a movie and you think, oh, okay, Bariana, but really, it does. It does happen, but it happens in a much weirder way. So I think you and I have spent a lot of time, mostly, let's say, block 10. Where we've seen each other.
Yeah.
So what would happen is you would be talking to me and you and I would be back in that room. Yes. So I wouldn't necessarily hear what you're saying. And the worst thing is that you would be talking and I would say something and you continue talking because I'm not really talking to you.
But you're thinking you're talking. You can hear or feel yourself responding.
Yes.
Meanwhile, nothing is coming out. Okay.
I wouldn't actually hear what you're saying. But it would be here. So that's how I remember some people. There's a friend of mine, Tony. Tony read my Facebook wall to me. But I thought we were in the library, where we used to always be. So in my mind, I'm like, why are you reading my wall post for everyone to hear? Kanti, he's reading people's messages to say, oh, heard about the accident, please wake up. And I couldn't even think about that. But when I woke up, I asked him, I'm like, did you ever read my Facebook wall to me? He's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I remember you.
Wow.
I don't remember everyone.
Yeah.
I reacted to some. My best friend, I reacted to her immediately. So she was banned from getting into the hospital section. I was quarantined.
Because of how you reacted?
I was quarantined in ICU. So at that time, my doctor called me a miracle. I was broken armed 3 places. So a bone came out through here. They put plates in 3 areas. They drained blood and water from my lungs. So I've got an suction the side. There's an amputation. And then I had a gash in the back of my head. So I had a lot of blood loss from there as well. The rest were just scarring. And then this was an actual made-up scar because in the coma, I was trying to pull out the food tubes and the air respirators. So they had to glue it on. So at that time, they couldn't afford to have my BP get really, really bad or really, really low. So low in a house and I know what you don't say bye. Because I would
you'd respond, you'd react to that.
Yeah. So my best friend, and every time she got into the cubicle, so I was quarantined inside a plastic cubicle inside ICU. That's how bad it really was. When she got in, my blood pressure would go high all the time. So she wasn't allowed. She would come and sit there and cry at my mom the whole time.
Do you remember her visiting you then? Okay, so you don't remember. Okay.
I remember my mom. I remember my dad, which is funny because my dad was in the States, but he came within 3 days from there. And so I remember my dad, my mom, I remember my aunt, Tony is the friend. I think maybe 2 or 3 more people I remember. Others apparently I reacted still, but I don't remember. I would cry in a coma. So like when someone says bye. So I think I remember certain stuff like that. And then my friend who passed away, I remember her, but our interaction was completely different. So I obviously didn't know who the deceased was at the time of the accident. But Kuskolong, we had from the library stairs. But it was a flame plat, and then there were stairs that were langwatlas to the kraal. So in our interaction, when
while you're in the coma,
yes,
yeah,
I'm calling to her, and she's walking away. And when she gets to the top of the stairs, she turned back and she waved, and she went down the stairs. That's because she never really was there.
Yeah, of course.
So I didn't know until obviously the feeding tube and the life ventilator, I think 6 days after I woke up.
So I want you to take me back to the moment or the day you woke up, because I referencing the movie where, so I'm sitting here wondering, is it one of those where you're like, suddenly the eyes are open and like, it's like, oh, she's up. How did that happen? Do you remember that? And who's the first person you see? What do they say to you? What are you feeling? What are you seeing in that moment?
It's crazy because I think I woke up at night initially. So when I wake up, I start fidgeting because I'm looking around. And there's so much happening. Mind you, right before I woke up, I started having visions of the accident. So as far as I was concerned, oh yeah, we had an accident. So it's like right before Bulamat. Like from the night before, right before Bulamat, you're like, oh, last night, and then you open your eyes. So it was like, kind of yesterday we had an accident, oh my God, my leg, oh gosh, my exam. I'm thinking it's the next day. So I open my eyes and I've never been in ICU. So in my head, I'm like,
What is this?
And ICU, I'm like, they probably needed Bashara inventory. ICU. It can't be. It's the next day.
Yeah.
And then I'm in a private hospital, by the way, at that time. Thank you to our Botswana government. There's a TV up against the wall. And when I look, there's football. Countries. And I'm like, no. I can't ask anything, by the way. I had a ventilator, oxygen tank, life support, food, pipe. It goes from your nose onto your stomach. So it's a naga. I had a catheter. That's a bag that takes your urine. I had every machine possible on. So I couldn't talk. So I'm just looking around like, okay. I think, and then I passed out. I saw the nurses waving at me. And I thought to my mind, because I really am this person, I'm like, I mean, so I'm like, maybe I'm under anesthesia. I caused a mess, something.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh my God, you're awake, hi. And I'm like, watched way too many of you guys. It's only been a few hours. And then I passed out. I woke up in the morning. Now my doctor's there. His name is Dr. Gadja. Lovely, lovely, lovely man. He saved my life. Dr. Gadja's there. He's like, hi. And he's talking and he's telling me stuff. And he explained. It's like, I can imagine that, there's a lot. So I'm here for you today. We're going to go through the day. And I'm looking at this Indian man like, what are we going through? So mind you, before I woke up, I knew we had an accident. And I knew there was something that was wrong with my leg. So I'm lying back in a position where you can't really fully see your whole body. And this area is a stump. It was wound up so much because they cut off your leg and then they let it bleed out completely before bakairukel, so that there's no rotten blood in your body. So even when I woke up, there was something called phantom pain, where the nerves of your receding limb are still active. So by virtue of that, I thought I still have my two legs, hold out, my knee is crushed. Because all I see is big, humongous amount of skin bandage. I can't see, obviously, even this leg to the end.
Of course.
But I'm feeling both my feet gripping onto the sheets. So I'm thinking, okay, crushed knee. So this is the morning, waking up around 7. My doctor says, okay, I'm going to do my runs and then I'm coming back to you so that I can explain to you what's going on. Great. The nurses continue. Now they come and this lady's like, oh, your mom just called. I'm like, what? My mom just called. And the one nurse had a checking what? Date. I'm like, the 25th of June. 19 days have passed. Imagine. I'm like, what is... Now I'm like, hold up. That's why I remember being to military.
It's been 19
I've been here
days.
for nearly 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Obviously, my mom has come through now. Obviously, she's calling. Happy, they're like, oh no, she left 2 days ago. She's come back in 2 days' time. I'm like, what is going on? And still, no one is allowed to tell me about the death.
Yeah.
I can't talk still, so I can't ask who died. So I'm waiting for the people that I was in an accident with to arrive.
Yeah.
Because we got in this together, and as far as I was concerned, I thought it was a driver. I thought the driver had died. So, yeah. Fast forward, the day goes on. The physiotherapist comes through. So, Nikinskirwa physio in my coma. The physiotherapist comes and she says, move your right leg. I move my right leg. My arm was in a hanger sort of thing so that it can stay straight.
Okay.
To hold the marapo together again. So the physiotherapist in the statement just says, okay, then move your stump. I know English. And as soon as she said move my stump, I did. And never have I seen something like that before in my life. One, it is light. The movement is not the same as moving a full leg. Secondly, there's so much space. You know how you occupy space, Mobalao. Your two legs are there.
Yeah.
Now there's one leg and then there's space. So that's something that you don't realize. I looked at it and I thought, what?
What is this?
I still can't ask questions. I sat for 6 days with people coming to visit, friends crying. And I'm still there like, what happened? I remember the accident, but what is going on? This is it's new. So for 6 days, I had to balance my resilience against my faith in God and work it out. And I thought, okay, you know what? From here, I need to get serious. I can't for a second let this consume me. I was really thinking about going back to school, routes that we take at school, because funny enough, our varsity was very, very much pro disabled people. So with every steps, there was a ramp, there was a lift. So there's no place that was inaccessible for varsity. That's the one thing about varsity.
Those are the things you're thinking about in this
navigating my life. How am I going to do this? How do you date? What do you wear? How do you live? What am I going to be able to do? And then I don't even know that my arm as well is in a point whereby my doctor said, if it doesn't work in 18 months, it'll never work again. So that would really incapacitate me completely. So all of that is happening, and my mom finally arrives like after 2 days, and I still can't talk to her. And she's going on, hey, passport de latlhegile. And I'm like, passport de me haya latlhega. It's in my room. Ing. And 2 nights before they removed the tubes, I got into a seizure. One of my housemates was there, remember? And then I got into a seizure. And only to find out by then that they had done 53 CAT scans on me. That was my 53rd CAT scan, because I had lost so much blood that I didn't even know if I was going to have brain capacity. They were literally waiting for me to open my mouth to know if I have memory, if I have anything. So it's a big feat. It's a life-changing experience.
And in those moments, are you, of course, you're talking about, going through all these, like trying to navigate your life, like where to from here, like what is the next step, right? But emotionally, what are you feeling? Are you in pain? Are you sad? Are you crying, or are you just numb? Because I'm sitting there just wondering what it is that now you're feeling and whether you're able to express that in the state.
At that state, I'm just confused. And because I can't talk, I'm just like, I'm waiting to see the people that I was in an accident with. I'm waiting until you can talk and ask.
There's so many gaps.
There's a whole gap of 19 days.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I don't know. My mother's here. I have a cut leg. I mean, that one I could really now be like, oh, so that was what happened.
Yeah.
Because that was always bothering me. I didn't even realize that my arm has been hanging on a hanger this whole time. The things that I didn't realize that I found out, I didn't even have scars on my body. I woke up and I went from being one person to being patchwork. I'm finding different things. My neck, so the marks are still a bit of it there. It was a lot. I remember even thinking, am I even eating? Because you have the whole day to yourself.
Yeah.
Mind you, we had this man in ICU. He passed away a few days later. But he would groan every morning at 5. And ICU, emergency, but people are dying. And I'm sitting there, just sitting, watching, observing, waiting for the day that
all
this
of these
comes
things
out,
are removed,
and I figure out what's happening. And my doctor was extremely calm. I think he really thought, okay, well, she seems to be acknowledging movement and.
So he's happy with the progress, I'm assuming.
Yes. He made me, he patched me up everywhere possible. So the fact that I was still breathing and I'd opened eyes and he was like, well, let's see.
Yeah.
Plus, also there's all that radiation that's happening to my brain. 53, 52 scans is a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. But this is something that was happening regularly at this point in time, just to see if there's any brain activity. All of this is happening. So having someone like him as well, the recipients of it, I remember when he came personally to remove my stuff, he told me his story, and I was his 100th orthopedic surgery. Aww. So he was like, I fought for you. I fought for you, you fought for you, but I fought for you. And I had a band of nurses go ICU. Those ladies loved me.
Oh.
There was a restaurant downstairs. Oh, Spatiling. I didn't even know because I never left my room.
Of course.
They took me out on their day out, day off. Let's take you to the restaurant downstairs. I had never done a lot of things. But that place was my home from the 6th of June until the 15th of July. Because even after I woke up, I had to learn how to sit. I had to learn how to use a wheelchair with my arm because I couldn't use crutches.
And you couldn't use one arm, of course. Yeah.
I had to make a crutch to hold my arm. Everything was a bit more really, really tailor-made because I had so many excessive injuries. I should have died. I should have. But who had only one crack on her lip, internal bleeding, and passed away.
That was it. So tell me about after getting all those things removed, do you remember what the first thing you said is? And of course, you mentioned that the doctor is there now. He's telling you his story and letting you know that he fought for you. Is that the first person you're able to talk to? And also, perhaps also take me to now finding out about everyone else who was in the accident. How then do you get to also even find out about your friend now who passed away?
So when they removed the tube, I also remember it's coming from my stomach through the nose, the whole way. So I think for the first hour and a half,
you couldn't talk.
I couldn't talk.
Yeah.
So they just kept on giving me hot water. And I was only drinking or eating liquids. So the first person who actually came was our HOD. At that time, I was probably in the top percentile of her class, and she didn't even know I exist. So she's coming and she's like, who are you passing my grades like this? And who are you to be awake and here? You have done well. And she asked me what I wanted, and I said I wanted chocolate.
Oh,
I didn't know what I wanted, so I was like, chocolate. I think something sweet. I don't know anything, but something obviously soft. But the first person I actually had a full conversation with was our ex-professor, Professor Makaiba. She taught us dialect, the very same process I came into. She taught us what we call, for us it's RAF, when it's MVA. She taught that very module. So I was also her study in class, should make an example with me.
Yeah.
But yes, she came and she really supported me. When they realized that my brain was still working well, the university got me a scribe, someone who'd write my exams for me. I would study and I'd be in a separate room. They made all the concessions for me because I was a bright student and I didn't lose my memory. So I left the hospital on the 15th of July. I was back in varsity on the 9th of August.
Girl, look at you. But perhaps even go back to you now, getting back to life. What was your interaction like with your mom after waking up? And who then goes on to tell you about the fact that you've lost your friend, yeah?
So my mom was coming, I think... So she was in between PE and training every 4 days or so. Even like with Turang, her boss was one of my family friends, like an uncle. So he was like, go, just go. But she would come back and make sure workers, because it's 19 days with someone asleep.
It's of course.
There's only so much you can do. Plus also just preparing for this new lifestyle. It was completely different for my family as well.
I can imagine.
So when... I think I didn't ask my mom. A friend of mine was there and I asked, where is Maone? Because she dragged me into this mess. Where is she? And I'm laughing. And my friend just kind of dropped her face. And she's like, Maone passed away. And I'm like, and she's like, no, I didn't know. No one was supposed to tell you during the coma. And right now it's because you asked. Like you've cornered me into... Where's this person? And I think it was probably on like day number 2. Where I was like,
guy, yeah.
She's my friend. She's loud. She's bossy. She would have been here. And when I heard that she passed away, then that moment I had in the coma
made sense.
Yeah, it made sense. I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. I was playful, angry with her because I was like, I can't believe you left with a scratch on your lip. Sis.
Look at me. Yeah.
I was a swimmer. I had nice legs for a black girl. So I couldn't believe it. I'm like, you left me like this. But okay. It was supposed to be me.
Yeah.
It's me. And I came back with all the horrors. Apart from me, my one friend had a broken leg. His leg broken 3 places. That was it. Everyone else was bruises, scratches. Just her and I. We went through this together, so...
Now, then the day you get discharged from the hospital, like, okay, perhaps what I should be asking is, at what point does it hit you, if at all there was a point, right? Because for all I know, it was gradual, that you then got to realize that, damn, things have drastically changed. Or was there a moment that actually made you realize just how serious this is, just how drastic your life had changed? Any moment, really. Like,
I'll tell you, and this is the first. So I don't think many people know this. The time when I realized that, life has really changed. At 21, mind you, remember when I left PE? I left 4 years because my mother was here. We were clashing.
Yeah.
But at the age of 21, I go joining in a room, get by my mom. That's when you know, okay, she does really hit the fan. Sorry. But
okay.
Yes.
It's okay.
Because I want the boyfriend, everyone's living their life. Everyone's in varsity. And I have to get washed by my mother. It's winter. And then I sit on a wheelchair all day and just sit. If I'm not going to physiotherapy, it's just,
It's a lot.
thinking, okay, this is going to be my life with my mom. I couldn't think about that. So that's what was, I don't think I told many people about it. So it might get me a bit teary-eyed, but
Yeah.
That was definitely
Got me teary-eyed too, and I'm so sorry about that.
Emma, that was the moment.
That was the moment.
Yeah.
And now, let's talk about navigating the grief post this experience, right? Because I can imagine there's so many stages to grieve. How are you processing this? Also, do you blame anybody for this, or have you, were you able to get to a stage of acceptance quickly? I just want us to unpack the grieving process. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Where is God in this? You know what I mean? Who are you? Are you angry? So I'm really just trying to figure out how this is unfolding, how the grieving, process is unfolding for you.
Emma, so God played a very pivotal role here. In that 6 days where I couldn't do anything, you want to be angry. You want to blame someone.
Yeah.
But at that moment, I said to God, I know myself. I won't get over it. And if you don't get over it, you say, stuck.
Of course.
And believe it or not, 21. my leg is never going to grow back. So I had to say to God, God, please, firstly, allow me to accept what I've been dealt with, because it's not going to come back. So I need to look at my life in a way that I'm not mourning the loss of my leg forever. I'm not mourning who I was. I have to. It took me a while to give away my stilettos. A while. But I did. So I had to ask God, and those 6 days were harrowing. I had to ask God, God, please help me not to be angry, not to be happy, not to stick with my life being this. My life is not me being two-legged or able-bodied. That's not my life. And before that, I was maybe extremely vain. You know what I mean? I thought I was hot. Everyone thought I was hot. I thought I was hot. Life was just revolving around me. So I had to ask God, okay, God, I need that humility right now. I need that grace right now. And I need it to happen anchored by you, because I can't afford to think I've healed or think I've forgiven, think anything and then turn back and not. So I had to look at the driver who at that time didn't come to the hospital because my father was extremely upset with him and didn't want to see him. And I called, I asked my friends, I'm like, please call him and ask him to come. Ke batla go mmona. I was in an accident with this person. Ke batla go mmona. One is in a hospital elsewhere. One has gone back to Joburg to home to go heal. Okay, I want to see him. No one knows what we went through except for him. Happy he was a driver. I'm like, there's no way. You think my friend woke up and thought, we thought today and I'm about to kill someone. I'm about to leave someone's life completely changed.
Yeah.
No. So I'm like, I can't imagine how he feels. And then to be told that he can't come here. So I asked for him to come and we spoke and I asked him, okay, so is this really what happened? What happened? Why is that at the scene no one found you there? And he's like, you know what? I went crazy and I ran home. Trying to run home to Kure, trying to run to the nearest police station.
Yeah.
And that is on that stretch that I just explained to you. Where would be the nearest police station? Sibili.
Ish.
Somewhere that far, a whole 10 kilometers of someone running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Must have been traumatic for him as well. Yeah.
So we spoke and, he had a lot of guilt. So I started first with saying to him, look, you need to not feel guilty because you're going to make me feel even worse. I get it. People have been shunning you. It's been a mess, but, I need you to kind of get it together because we're survivors. We survived something that was such a shock. And my friend was a really popular person. She was from PE, so everyone knew about us. Even people who didn't know me, they knew that I was the girl in the accident with her. You see, so I had to ask God. And my doctor told me I was a miracle baby because even my arm, he gave it 18 months. I prayed. I worked hard. I prayed. My mother prayed. People were at the house all the time praying. I prayed to God myself, please help me at least to do this because I can't do that. Help me to jump over this hurdle. I prayed for my arm. I prayed for my arm because I had to pray for my arm. Please, I can't go to the toilet by myself because I have to have someone open the door. I couldn't use crutches at that time.
You're still using a wheelchair.
So imagine in a house, wheelchair, I couldn't do anything for myself. So when I asked God, I was like, please, just my arm.
Yeah.
At first, I said, okay, I'll help God out. God helps those who help themselves. So I met him halfway and I started using my left arm. But still, really trying. My doctor and I went back to school, went back to PE, and we did a lot of therapy. And he wasn't doing my intensive therapy, but he would come to my sessions sometimes to see. My teams were all hands-on. My support system was hands-on. And I don't think we all believed it. They were just like, okay, let's try.
Yeah.
But we how it's hey, we prayed a lot. I am a sign of God's prayer and testament. We prayed a lot because a lot of the things that happened to me should have never happened. I would have never happened to another person. Never. But I overcame something harrowing.
So please tell me about now going back to school because, one of the things you mentioned at the beginning is you are a lawyer. So it means you actually saw school through.
Yes.
You were able to still function and you were able to thrive at school. So I want you to take us there now. What does day one back at school look like? And then how then, does life unfold after? Because the last time you were at school, you had both your legs, right? You were walking, running, you know what I mean? like you're saying, you're actually imagining the path to school from home. So now all of that has changed. So going back to school, what is that like?
The back to school experience was different. My friends were extremely supportive. They lost 2 friends. Well, they lost 1 friend and they got 1 friend who's now in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
So my friends told my mom, I had a nurse at home, I had a driver. The school also, as I said, was very pro inclusion. I'm very blessed to have gone to a university like that. So there was drivers for people who were disabled. They had all these concessions that were made. And you would never know them until you fall into that place.
Yeah.
Now I knew that there was a bus that could come and take me to school. With the whole wheelchair assistance thing, tailor-made for us handicapped or disabled students, my friends moved me from class to class. It took a knock. It took a really big knock to my self-esteem. As I was before, I was pretty popular. So it just changed. But my support system made going to varsity very different. It wasn't the same. My lecturers were very concerned. They had given me notes for tests that I had missed. They would give me a re-chance to do it again. They really made sure that I was as accepted or as included as possible. Luckily, my university does have that motto. If it wasn't for that systematic motto, go NMMU, I don't even know if I would have been able to go back to school. But they made that process very seamless. Very seamless. At the end of the semester, I'd only failed 1 subject. And it's because I had missed the first 2 tests. And they really couldn't make any more tests for me for that particular module. So I think that was lovely for me because the inclusion and the seamless transition made it so easy to go back to varsity. It's much more easier to be in PE back in varsity than it is for me to go to a mall.
I was going to take it there, but perhaps
Airport
before we
junction.
even get to, that here, at what point, if ever, right, did you feel like yourself again, if that is even a thing? Post the accident, would you say there was a moment where you're like, actually, at least from a mental, emotional, perspective, right? Because, of course, the physical had changed for good. Did you ever reach a point where you're like, things are feeling lighter, I'm able to laugh again, or did life change completely and nothing ever felt the same again, even internally for you?
I think I've never actually realized this, but my arm was probably most of my project than my leg. Because my leg was all about it, ihola and the likes. But for a certain amount of time in my life, Gaona, all I knew was sleep, prayer, physio. You spend your days literally trying to hold a squeeze ball, trying to get better. That was all my life was.
Yeah.
And then I went to varsity and I got a break from that, but still, physio, weekend, this, that. I had to learn different things, I had to wake up one day, thought I could go to the toilet in the middle of the night, and then I remember, damn, wheelchair. So I have to navigate until it became easy for me. And that came with my arm getting better. Because waking up on hotelela physio hela, as much as I wanted to live my life, this was now all that my life was. It was consuming it. It's like grief. Grief, it consumes you until it gets better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that can either be a time thing. In my case, it was a progress thing. So for a while, my life was a progress report. How much am I doing with my arm? My arm was started working in 9 months.
Yeah.
Maybe because that's all I lived. But the minute I started again, being able to do stuff for myself, those achievements stopped being achievements and started becoming my daily routine. Now I'm highly independent. You would never believe.
Yeah.
So now, and this is who I am.
Yeah.
I don't know what and how, but when I prayed to God, I said to him, Halakwa, this is who I'm supposed to be. There's a reason.
Yeah.
I'm vocal for a reason. I'm colorful for a reason. I'm wild. I'm loud for a reason. So, Halakwa, this is the path. If it has to be me, it will be me. You know what I mean? Who else should it be in any event?
That's it.
And God gave me the strength. I could have never told you that I'd do this. I could have never. I would have told you what I would have given up in the felt. But I didn't. Apparently, I didn't.
Of course. What
Apparently, I didn't. So, yeah, I think, I don't know, somewhere between a year after my accident, somewhere there when I started really completely now knowing how to not have to have someone around me in order for me to just live.
Yeah.
Without having anyone around. Before that, every waking moment was with someone because I needed someone to help me get into the wheelchair. Just my point of getting up needed assistance. So I think it's somewhere around there.
And one of the things that you said, you know, was a question that you had in mind after you woke up, before you had all of those things removed, is dating. So I'm curious about that. You know, relationships, friendships. You're talking about having amazing friends, you know, who really just made your life as comfortable as it could be. How were friendships like, and how was dating like post? You know, one of the things you touched on, you mentioned, is you had a struggle with, you know, your self-esteem took a knock.
Yeah.
You know, so I really want to know then now, because, you know, the thing about us in relationships, whether it's friendships, you know, whether it's dating, it starts with the self before it's about the next person. So I can only imagine how then, you know, that went on to evolve. Here we are today. You have an amazing partner who's here with you as we speak, you know. But yeah, perhaps just get us, you know, into that. How has that been now over the years? How, you know, has that evolved? You know, what were the challenges and what are some of the realizations that you've had that have gotten you to this moment?
Okay, and this is no disrespect, but there's a lot of things that happen with, especially with knowledge. We've made people who are disabled like a taboo. Or the topic is taboo. How do people go, you know, they get very touchy.
That's it.
So that's why being NP at the time, even I think maybe the medication and the doctors and the level of health really helped me to actually still be alive. But being disabled in SA is something that is a norm and taken very seriously. But I never had a problem dating there. Ever. And I got here and it takes a while for a guy to talk to me. Some will off the bat talk to me and be like, oh my God, you're so hot. You know? And I had a male friend say to me, why do you think that guys wouldn't find you attractive? Because I said to him, sometimes I get into a room and I could have the prettiest face, but someone would be like, hey, Mikana, you know, I have to have all these collective things for someone to be like, oh, okay, it's not the same. You know, even though I don't like that comparison bit. I am able-bodied. I am independent. I drive. I live by myself. I have a job. I dress well. I'm a girl like any other girl.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? But I used to think Moto needs to see all of those in one package and then maybe say, okay, Ngajala
And this was you thinking that.
Yeah, me thinking that. And then one of my male friends said to me, it's like every guy's bucket list to date a girl with one leg. Everyone wants to try it. So he was like, what? I'm sure every guy pervs on you like it's a bucket list. And I thought about it. I was like, really? He's like, I am sure every guy probably wonders, like, how is it to date you? So I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe. So I stopped looking at it as, will I fit in? Should I fit in? And why don't I fit in? Rather than, you really should date me for who I am. If not, I don't have to prove myself over and beyond an able-bodied girl. Why should I?
That's it.
Either you want me or you don't. I do most or more than any able person still in my capacity, but why should I have to prove myself that I'm worthy of dating you. When I am who I am and I will still have the challenges I still have. Being my friend and being my boyfriend as a guy are two very different things. And as my boyfriend, you need to know that certain things will be, can be, and should be. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And some things are, it's a must. And if you're not kind enough or willing enough to know and be open to knowing that things are different from me, then you don't have any business dating me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because there will be things that are different. How can you know you're going to Palesa wa lapis?
Exactly.
Hey,
Yeah.
what I can, I will do. How feel like then don't.
You have no business being here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you can marry a very able-bodied person. 15 years into a great, happy life, they get into an accident. Sometimes this happens.
That's it.
They get blood pressure. They get amputated. Do you stop loving them or feel like they're an obligation?
Yeah.
Or they're a chore, they're a duty. If those things have to come to you, then you have no business dating someone who in any way will need help. That means you might as well not get a woman pregnant. Because when a woman gets pregnant, when 7-8 months come, there's certain things that now we really just cannot do.
Absolutely.
So it's just about dating someone who's kind enough to know, and a man who knows what they want to date.
Absolutely.
Or who they want to date. I am not my leg.
Thank you.
I'm not my leg. I used to think I was, so you can imagine how traumatized I was.
Yeah.
I went from not thinking the shallow input of life that a girl needs to look like this and that, just because I fitted that model back in the day. And yeah, maybe God did throw me a bit of humble pie, but I ate it well. And now I'm here to just say, look, I'm different. I am different. Treat me kinder. But don't isolate me.
That's it. Speaking of which, I actually want us to get to, two things. The one is you spoke about, just how inclusive the P environment was, even just from an infrastructure perspective. Like, you didn't struggle. And then you came back home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So let's talk about where we are, where that is concerned in our country. And then also the element of just human interaction with somebody, with a disability. What is that like? Are we informed? Do you find that, how do people interact with you, and how would you advise people to interact with someone like you? So just those two things, the inclusion element and,
and the accessibility.
Yeah.
I spoke about inclusion and accessibility. I was on radio last year, Relearning FM, because of a status I made, essentially about going to the mall, how that is a drag. It's a schlep. One thing I mentioned earlier on, Haki Wakere, Batswana or Nabatovansu, or even just primitive people who think in that way. When someone is disabled, they would be hidden and put away. So because we've made it such a taboo, it's hard for us now to start teaching society. For someone who's disabled is not sitting on a wheelchair drooling. You get what I mean? We've progressed with so much. We've progressed with sexuality.
Yeah.
We've progressed with gender. Now it's time for us as Botswana to progress with abilities or disabilities. You get what I mean? Know the language. I'm an amputee. There's a paraplegic. We're different. There's different names for us. Yes, it's hard to learn, and that's fine, but our government has not institutionalized teaching about disabilities. Maybe it comes from that cultural history of making it a taboo.
Yeah.
But a security guard, a car guard, will ask me, because I'm sitting in my car that is my car. So it's a fast car. I've got a wig on, makeup, and I'm looking like I'm having the time of my life. I'm blasting the music. And he'll laugh sometimes and be like, hey, let's go check. And even then, the wording. Because all you need to know is the wording. Don't say, I'll show us a hole. No. just ask me, do you know what this is a parking lot for people who want to learn? Yes, I want to learn erra hakai. Because I would rather you ask me that than you just put me in, because now I know the pain of someone using a disabled parking when they're not disabled. I have to walk from afar to get into a store because you have a nice car and someone lets you park in there. Because Libone, in the teaching of disabilities, we haven't realized that we as the community of disabled people, we're vulnerable. We're not saying treat us specially or differently or we're entitled, no, but we are vulnerable.
Absolutely.
There's a certain way that you need to deal with someone of my nature.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, you will still tell everyone, but you will be very more cautious of me. Because I have a chance of slipping and falling and it could go south.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you see, it's the same. We include us, but do understand that we have limitations, like anyone, anywhere, anyhow. It's just that ours are more permanent. In some cases, ours are more delicate. But the only way you'll know how to deal with someone like me is if you're actually taught about someone like me.
That's it.
So because we don't teach it, everyone takes something as small as a parking space for granted.
Yeah.
People take things as being in queues for granted, or just the way in which even the language include us in topics. There was once a post on Facebook. Someone complained, parking lot there go square matiking esa bulelo because what are they doing? So I'm not even allowed to go to the store after 6. Why? I'm not an animal.
Very insensitive. Yeah.
So, and it's just the way in which we teach. And because we don't teach people like that, people come and say, because I put people in that corner where I'm like, I would rather you not be ignorant. Let me teach you.
That's it.
Then think that it's a compliment what you're saying to me, because what you're then saying is the embodiment of who I am is a shame. And you're disassociating with me with that because you think I'm better and I need to be told that. Yeah. No, this is exactly who I am. I am disabled.
That's it.
I am disabled. When you count the people who are able and disabled in the room, I fall under disabled.
Yeah.
So until we start teaching people about it and teaching people what this is why this happens, this is how this should be done, this is why this is implemented, we will never be fully included.
And while we're still talking about teaching people, I think another very important one is, how, because I think I'm sitting here thinking, perhaps you come across people who then think it's okay to ask you what happened. Is there anything wrong with that? How should they go about that, right? There are people who would just stare, So I think we need education around that as well, the do's and don'ts, right? Because, as somebody, and my case is completely different, I've had to deal publicly with, a trauma. And one of the things I wanted personally was, instead of having this thick, tension when I walk into a room, I'd rather have somebody say, hey, or hey, or how are you doing? Or do you know what I mean? Or I saw an article. Is it true? I would have wanted that, right? Versus just people pretending they don't know or just acting as if everything is normal. And that's just the me thing. So where you're concerned, I can imagine somebody meeting you and think, okay, perhaps let me get this out of the way. What happened? Or do you just want it to be business as usual? Do you get what I'm saying? So, yeah, so I just want you to, because sometimes it's just because people don't know. And I think that's exactly what you've been saying. People do not know. So how would you want that, especially, believing you're speaking on behalf of others like you mentioned. So what are the do's and don'ts where that is concerned,
I think, and I mentioned this in our pre-interview yesterday.
Yeah.
It's not about, there's no way I would never want someone to feel empathetic towards anyone in a plight.
Yeah.
This is our plight. It happens. It could be this. It could be that. It could be this.
Yeah.
Is the most humane thing that is there.
100%.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
You should be empathetic towards me.
Yeah.
but it is your delivery. It is your delivery to me as a stranger. As a stranger, that baffles me. The three of you that know me in this room have never asked me what happened to me. Yet I will have someone meet me. And it happens often. It happened where a lady just came up to me. I have bad days. I'm a human being. You have bad days. It's got nothing to do with being able-bodied or not.
Yeah.
We have bad days. So vegetable. And then you come. Oh my God, what happened to you? Hey, you don't know me from a bar of soap. Please, that lady didn't say hi. And I said to her, ma'am, and she was older than me, so I had to come still with all my anger. I had to still come to speak to a woman, to ask her to respect me.
Wow, yeah.
I have to still be sensitive towards you in order for me to show you the boundaries or lack thereof. Because believe you me, if I start throwing a fit right now in a store, it's going to be attributed to my ability.
Of course.
Which isn't the case.
Yeah.
It's a bad day. Can you start with a hi? Firstly. Secondly, gauge.
Yeah, of course.
Gauge. How we can't have enough conversation for you to gauge. Then you have no business asking me what's happening or what happened to me. You get what I mean?
100%.
I have no problems with having that conversation. I would rather so that I can actually educate you. Kids always ask me.
I was going to ask about kids actually.
Get so scared. And I chuckle. I'm like, no, this is an innocent soul.
Yeah.
They don't know any better. Because we're not being taught that you can have little Mpo with one leg,
That's it.
little Jack with two moms.
It.
We're still getting into the religious, gender, sexual education. We haven't reached a pivotal group of people. Disabled people are still a very pivotal group of the society. We haven't gotten to discussing that. So a child who's got an innocent mind will come and say something to me at the store. And I will always tell them, depending on their age, I tell them a story. If it's a little girl, I'll tell her, okay, I borrowed it to Barbie. If it's a little boy, no, it was eaten by sharks and they get so excited. Oh my God, it was sharks.
What was that like?
Yeah. And sometimes I ask the mother, I'm like, I'm really confused how old your child is. And I don't know if I should.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, she's really, really, I can see kids who will walk me to the toilet, ask to hold my handbag.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'll explain. And I tell parents, I'm like, I don't mind a child coming up to me like this because they're very innocent.
Yeah.
They don't know boundaries. You learn boundaries as you grow up.
Yeah.
Gore ha o phantsi wela go bua sengwe le sengwe. Kana ha o batla go bua le motho o
motlayang. That's it.
And that's you get from age.
Yeah.
So I don't expect a young child's naivety or innocence to play in the role. But mathata ke gore people, one, you want to also, you wanna give me words of encouragement, but in the same breath you also want to tell me how I should do things.
That's it.
How are you suggesting to me how I should live my life as a disabled person when you're able-bodied?
When you're not, yeah.
Kape, there's no need to compare.
That's it.
Hey, Kana, my child also broke his leg. There's a huge difference between breaking your leg and getting amputated.
Yeah.
I nearly died.
Yeah.
That's it. So I'm like, look, let's ask someone if they're comfortable. Because this is not about just being disabled. Even if you see someone who was pregnant and then all of a sudden, no.
That's
It's about how you approach someone. It's the approaching, it's the environment.
Yeah.
It's the environment. If I've given a platform for that environment, I can allow you to ask me what happened in 10 minutes of meeting me.
Of course.
Because we just vibed, or the environment was great, or I found people sharing intimate things.
Yeah.
You just asking me to feed your curiosity.
Another thing, Ghana, is curiosity versus even empathy.
Yes.
Sometimes we mask curiosity as empathy, but I'm just curious. And then I expect and then because now you don't answer the way I expected, I think I can
now
take
you think
offense.
I'm a terrible
Wow,
person.
Bana, yeah.
And
I
now,
hear
oh,
you.
that's like,
I
then
hear
all of a
you.
sudden, this disabled person is acting like this. No. How
Ke
ka mo
wena, the
tuhela o
approach ya gago.
bore, o bore a go arabe. This
Yeah.
is someone's
What
innermost.
kind of entitlement
Hey,
is
this
that?
is someone's innermost problem. You don't know how I'm gonna react to
Yeah.
this because you don't know me at all.
Yeah.
If I start crying, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not thought about as far. Gape, when you do ask, that's like what you just said, gore versus curiosity.
Yeah.
You will hear how someone asks, and then you will hear them giving advice or comparing or this. Then you're not being empathetic.
You're not.
You're just
You're
here
not.
to fish so that you can give me your opinion. And I hate that.
Yeah.
There's no way, I've never in my life before I was disabled given someone who's disabled advice.
Wow, Bana.
From what? From Kita to guy.
Exactly.
You don't know what for you to go to the toilet at 2:00 in the morning is a very easy task.
Yeah.
For me, I have to find my crutches or hop, which my boyfriend really hates, to the loo. You see what I mean? So, especially when you don't know me,
That's
get
it.
a chance to get to know me. Take a step, just a step in one of my shoes,
Yeah.
and see how life is
Absolutely.
before you just panta.
Speaking of which, and as we wrap up, speaking about, walking in my shoes, I want you to end this by talking to somebody who's perhaps in similar shoes, right? Not in the exact same shoes, but similar shoes. You seem like, of course, from the outside, you know what your internal battles are, but you seem to have made so much progress as far as, healing or acceptance is concerned. I want you to share, I don't know whether to call it words of advice, but speak to somebody who's going through a similar situation, perhaps who's fresh, out of an accident, or is dealing with some kind of disability and just thinks it's over, my life is over, there is no future, I do not imagine myself accomplishing all those dreams and aspirations that I had, right? What would you like to say to them? Because, of course, we've been talking to the community, to society to say, guys, you can do better. But now, as I struggle with those mental, emotional, spiritual, challenges?
Firstly, I think we always say this, it seems like it's a cliche, but whatever God you are praying to, have conversations with that person. Whatever God it is, don't pray, talk. Have conversations, because it gets extremely dark.
Yeah.
And you have to believe that you can be a miracle. You have to believe. This is where now you have to live by faith and not by sight. You have to believe that God will, your God, in my case, it's my God. God, I said to God, I'll meet you halfway. Meet me halfway.
Yeah.
So you need to first have serious conversations with that guy. Repent. Repent. Talk to God like you're talking to your friend.
Yeah.
And also, big thing. See the good in what can happen immediately. Don't allow any negative energy to settle in. Because especially for someone who's amputated or who is paralyzed, that situation will never change.
Yeah.
It will never change. It's the same thing as having a miscarriage, having a stillbirth. That child never comes back. You can fall pregnant again.
But you're never gonna get
that
again.
situation and really see the positive out of it, because the negative will consume you. It will consume you, and it will change your relationship with God.
Yeah.
It will change your relationship with people. It will change your relationship with yourself. Will never channel through. So you really need to ask for God to remove the anger, the confusion, the fear. Even ask God to take that fear and propel it with your faith. But the anger, ask God to take that away because it will consume you.
Yeah.
And nothing's going to change. And how Tanya, life would have moved on. Sadly, life would have moved on. Your friends would have moved on. Your family would have moved on. Days go by.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to, one, strengthen your relationship with God on a new level. Two, learn to be tika as motho. Because this is the new you. It's not who you are, but it is a big part of who you are. It's not your identity, but you can identify with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am not disabled. I'm not a lawyer. Those are different roles that I play.
Yeah.
Palesa, I'm multifaceted.
That's it. That's
I
it.
am disabled, I am a lawyer, but I'm also a lot of other things.
100%.
So I identify with that. That is not my identity. So also learn that as well. I learned the acceptance. That comes from the one-on-one talks you have with yourself. Accept where you've done wrong, where you could do wrong, where you could do better, and how your life has to change. As I said, I was vain. Really vain. I don't know, maybe that was the humble pie. I don't think God punishes us like that.
Yeah.
But God still said, okay, I'll still keep your looks. Let's see what with your looks alone. Can you still attract people and not be walking all over the show? Hey, healy, hey. Now I'm more about who I am. It's no longer superficial.
Yeah.
Any relationship I have, any connections I have are not superficial. Any conversations I have are not superficial because I have a real story. I'm not someone who just lived life and was just.
Palesa, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you very much, girl, for such a
me.
profound interaction, for being vulnerable with us, for going that deep, and sharing things that, as you mentioned, you haven't shared before, at least publicly on this platform. Thank you for trusting GaonaLive Conversations with your story, and you're such an amazing person. You are beautiful. I've said this to you even before, like, girl, like, even just the makeup is just like,
Thank you.
And, you're such a light. You're such a force. And thank you for amplifying your voice and yourself through this platform. So I really, really appreciate this, and all the best with everything into the future. And God bless you, girl.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you very much for tuning in to this episode. And don't forget to share, to comment, like, and subscribe. And if you'd also like to share your story, you can DM the GaonaLive or GaonaLive Conversations pages on Facebook, or just email GaonaLiveConversations@gmail.com. Catch you on the next episode.